Let me thank you all for joining us today, and I want to thank everyone who's standing here, who has gathered here, who accepted the call to speak out on voter suppression bills currently being considered in the Texas Legislature. I certainly want to thank all of the elected officials who are present. I want to thank Michael Heckman and David Mintzberg with Houston FERS. I want to thank Karen Patman and the team with Metro. Certainly want to thank our business and labor leaders, the Hispanic, Black, Asian, Indo-American, LGBTQ Chambers of Commerce, the League of Women Voters, the National Federation of the Blind, Texas, the Houston Area Urban League, the Texas Civil Rights Project, Mia Familia Vota, the ACLU, LULAC, League of Women Voters, the Christian, Jewish, Muslim faith-based leaders, the Anti-Defamation League, prominent lawyers and law firms, business leaders, all of our labor leaders, and others who are here, amongst others. The right to vote is sacred, but in the 1800s and 1900s in this country, women and people of color had to fight to obtain that right. There were systemic impediments placed in our path, Jim Crow laws that denied the right to vote in most of the rural South through selective applications of literacy tests and other racially motivated criteria. There were bloody struggles of the civil rights movement that led to the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Chief Justice Earl Warren wrote in 1964, "The right to vote freely for the candidates of one's choice is of the essence of a democratic society, and any restrictions of those rights strike at the heart of representative government." In 2021, we find ourselves again fighting bills filed in legislatures across this country that would restrict, suppress the right of people to vote, Jim Crow 2.0. These bills, in the name of election integrity, are largely built on concerns over widespread voter fraud, for which there is little or no evidence. Senate Bill 7 and House Bill 6 are part of a national campaign to restrict people's right to vote. And these bills find them unacceptable. And let's be very clear. These bills would limit external early voting hours, prohibit drive-through voting, make it illegal for local election officials to proactively send applications to vote by mail to voters, even if they qualify, would ban anyone except the voter who filled out a ballot from dropping it in a mailbox or delivering it to an election official. They add new paperwork requirements for voters who need help because of language problems or disabilities. They restrict the numbers of voting machines available at countywide polling places and take power over election administrators away from local officials. They would broaden poll watchers' access at polling places, even giving them power to video record voters receiving assistance in filling their ballots if the poll watcher reasonably believes the help is unlawful. This could lead to voter intimidation of non-English speaking persons or people with intellectual disabilities, provide a new formula for locating polling places, and a ban on drop boxes. The Texas Rights Project, and I want to thank the representatives for being here today, states the extended voting hours in Harris County were mostly used by people of color. 56% of voters who cast ballots in late night hours were Black, Hispanic, or Asian. In addition, Black voters and other voters of color were more likely to be victims of poll watcher intimidation. The New York Times wrote, "Lawmakers in Texas, a state that already claims the most onerous voting laws in the nation, took a major step towards making it even tougher to cast a ballot." 72 Black corporate executives recently wrote, "Corporate America should publicly oppose any discriminatory legislation and all measures designed to limit Americans' ability to vote. And when it comes to protecting the rights of all Americans to vote, there can be no middle ground." And in the words of Dr. King, whose assassination took place 53 years ago Sunday, "There comes a time when silence is betrayal. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. In the end, We will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. And our friends, and quite frankly, this is a time when our friends can no longer be silent and cannot stand down. Evil prevails when good people stand down. And so our friends, business leaders, cannot be silent out of fear of intimidation by the perpetrators of voter suppression. And so at this time, let me yield. I want to start off by calling up County Judge Lena Hidalgo, who will be followed by County Judge K.P. George.
Mayor Turner, thank you. It's an honor to be here with you. Thank you for convening this incredible group of individuals. And to everybody who's here, thank you. What we're seeing right now is voter suppression happening in real time. A party that has bought into a conspiracy theory, the big lie, is now trying to change our laws to make it harder for all of us to vote. It's no secret that this is a direct attack on the success we had right here in Harris County. We've become a model for how to run safe, secure elections. We're proud of that, and all of us should be. Unlike those trying to suppress votes after the elections, the results of an election they didn't like, we've been working hard to make it easier for citizens of both parties to vote. The very first court after we were elected in January 2019 was dedicated to approving in Harris County the ability for voters to vote anywhere on Election Day, as opposed to having to rush back home from school or from work to their home precinct before the polls close. Then Clerk Diane Troutman led this effort. Upon Clerk Troutman's retirement, Chris Hollins helped execute a plan for how to run a safe, secure, and convenient election, a vision that voting advocates had been pushing for years. We tripled the number of early vote locations. We had 24-hour voting. We implemented drive-through voting. Under our new independent elections administrator, Isabel Longoria, who took Mr. Hollins' place, Harris County is now finally investing in and deploying the latest technology in voting machines with a paper trail. We're doing that because all voters, including Harris County voters, deserve the best. All of this takes money. All throughout, our Harris County Commissioner's Court has supported this vision financially. None of this would have been possible without the leadership of Commissioner Adrian Garcia, Commissioner Rodney Ellis, who are here today. The results speak for themselves. Record turnout in both parties and praise from voters of both parties for all of these initiatives, including drive-through voting. Since I've been in office, it's been my commitment to ensure that voting is accessible and safe for everyone, and I'm proud of that. I'm not going to stop. Harris County is leading and promoting our democratic right to vote across elected and appointed officials is something we live by. And now that right, those initiatives are being taken away by the state. These advances didn't happen overnight, and we cannot allow them to be torn down with the stroke of a pen. We can't let what happened in Georgia happen here in Texas. That's why we're standing here today, not just to raise our objection or denounce in the strongest terms what's happening, but to urge everybody to stand up and make their voices heard. And quickly. If you are a nurse, a first responder, a shift worker who was able to vote before because of 24-hour voting, stand up and make your voice heard. If you are elderly or you have a disability and you were able to vote because we helped promote mail ballot voting, stand up and make your voice heard. If you're a busy person who simply doesn't have the time to stand in line for hours and hours to be able to cast your vote, stand up and make your voice heard. If you're a student of history who's seen minority communities harassed to keep them from voting, stand up and make your voice heard. We've seen this movie before. This is nothing but voter harassment. If you're a major corporation, whether based here in Texas or not, take a stand right now. Your influence and dollars can save us from this latest attack on our democracy. In fact, it may be the only thing that can. Both parties benefited from the increased turnout in Harris County. That's something we should be proud of, not just throw away. What is happening here in Texas is a warning shot to the rest of the country. First Georgia, then Texas, then it's more and more states, and soon enough we'll have taken the largest step back since Jim Crow. The dominoes on basic voting rights are starting to fall, and it's on all of us to stop that. Thank you. I'll repeat my remarks in Spanish very briefly. Lo que estamos viendo en este momento en el condado Harris es supresión de votantes. Un partido que está promulgando teorías de conspiración, teorías de fraude electoral, están intentando cambiar las leyes para que sea más difícil el votar. No es ningún secreto que este es un ataque en los éxitos que tuvimos aquí en el condado Harris durante las elecciones del año pasado. Nos hemos convertido en un modelo acerca de cómo conducir elecciones seguras y convenientes. Después de ser elegidos en enero de 2019, desde ese día, la primera corte, pasamos la iniciativa para permitir que los votantes pudieran votar en cualquier sede electoral, en cualquier sede en el condado el día de las elecciones. No tener que salir corriendo a su precinto electoral después del trabajo, de la escuela, simplemente para poder votar. Eso lo hicimos bajo la secretaria de votación, Diane Troutman. Después de su retiro, Chris Hollins ayudó a ejecutar un plan acerca de cómo implementar elecciones seguras, elecciones convenientes. Es una visión que aquellos líderes que han abogado por el derecho al voto habían diseñado hace ya muchos años. Triplicamos el número de votos de sedes electorales de votación temprana, implementamos el voto de 24 horas, el voto por autoservicio. Después de que se retiró el secretario Hollins, la administradora electoral Isabel Longoria está invirtiendo en máquinas de votación modernas, la última tecnología. Hemos hecho eso porque el condado Harris merece la mejor tecnología. Todo esto toma inversiones financieras y eso lo hemos hecho gracias a los comisionados Adrián García y Rodney Ellis, invirtiendo en todas estas iniciativas. Y los resultados hablan por sí mismos. Han sido resultados récord, participación histórica de ambos partidos. No podemos dejar que lo que sucedió en Georgia suceda también en Texas. Es por eso que estamos aquí, para instar a todos que se hagan escuchar sus voces y rápidamente. Si usted es un enfermero, trabajador de medio turno, trabajador de emergencia que pudo votar a las 24 horas, haga que su voz se escuche. Si es una persona mayor, una persona con discapacidades que votó por correo gracias a nuestros esfuerzos para promulgar la votación por correo, haga que su voz se escuche. Si es una persona ocupada, trabajadora, que simplemente no tiene tiempo para pararse en línea horas y horas y horas solamente para poder votar, haga que su voz se escuche. Si es un estudiante de la historia, que ha habido como las comunidades minoritarias han sido atacadas, acosadas a través de la historia para prevenir que emitan su voto. Haga que su voz se escuche. Hemos visto esto antes y sabemos que lo que se está proponiendo es acoso a los votantes. Si es una empresa principal basada aquí en Texas o no, tome una posición ahora mismo. Su influencia y sus dólares pueden ayudarnos a salvarnos de este ataque en contra de nuestra democracia. De hecho, puede que sea lo único que lo haga. Ambos partidos se beneficiaron por estas iniciativas en el condado Harris. No podemos dejar que esto se elimine solamente con una firma. Lo que está sucediendo es una advertencia, un aviso para el resto del país. Es tiempo de que todos nosotros detengamos lo que está sucediendo. Muchas gracias. Judge George.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am KP George, your Fort Bend County Judge, and I just wanted to thank Mayor Turner and all the dignitaries here today, and all of you. Thank you for coming. And I just wanted to say, this last year, we had a record voting. 74% of Fort Bend County residents, registered voters, voted in that last 2020 election simply because of accessibility, and they could go and vote easily different times and things of that nature, extended hours and things of that nature. And so I thought it is, in a democracy, most people, all the people who are eligible to vote, voting is the best thing. But some people don't feel that way, I guess. And we all know that. 1870, when we give access to the African American men to vote, we thought we solved the problem. In 1920, we give access to women to vote in our country, we thought we solved the problem. In 1965, when we did the Voting Right Act, we passed and we thought we solved the problem. And after 56 years later, we all are here standing and talking about how everybody can vote. And we need to think about it. And why we are why we are having that discussion today after 56 years later. Simply because I believe some people don't believe what we believe. When everybody vote, things will get better. Everybody get a representation. And I am an example of, standing in front of you, an example of when everybody get to vote, people select and elect people who they like to represent themselves and their family. And I'm an example of that. And so I just wanted to say this. In Fort Bend County and in this region, most diverse in the country, and in our county, more than 122 languages are spoken. And we wanted to give access to everybody eligible to vote. And we will fight for that. And every one of you here joined together today. We need to fight for that. This is not a privilege, as you know. This is a right. People fought and died for this right. And people died for this right. And it is the time. It is the time, this is the time. I heard Mayor saying that we cannot stand idle, watch injustice happen to people. One thing I said when I went into my office, and I said, my office always stands for human dignity. And this is about our dignity. This is about certain people's dignity. And we need to fight, and my message to you, everyone those who are listening to me, those who are watching me, those who are here, let's go out and fight against this bill, suppressing, and we all know that who is going to get suppressed, the minorities. And in my county, that is around 68% of the population, minority, and we are going to get suppressed. If we don't stand up, this is going to continue to happen. Let's stand up and fight so that everyone in this country, the country we love, have the right to vote and select and elect their representative whom they wish and they feel can represent their values. Thank you very much.
Thank you also very much. I've been very lenient The rest of this segment, you have less than 5 minutes. So let me call on both the commissioners from Harris County to come first, followed by the congresswoman. A total of 5 minutes. Bear in mind, there are 3 other groups coming.
Mayor, thank you for calling us together. In particular, I want to call on the Greater Houston Partnership and our business leaders in Houston to speak out on this issue. This is simply, in succinct terms, a modern-day poll tax. Texas already has one of the strictest voter ID laws in the country. But despite that, a record number of people showed up to vote. Now, how do we defeat this measure, Commissioner Garcia, now? We're going to need our friends on the Republican side of the aisle. Rod Page, thank you for being here, because this legislation is moving its way through the legislature along complete partisan lines. We need our business leaders to step up like they stepped up on that dreaded bathroom bill. I just left a meeting right outside the city limits in Harris County, a major Fortune 150 company looking at putting a major location here. And one of the comments that they made in the sidebar discussion was, can you believe the people in Georgia would pass that law and still think somebody would move their operations to Georgia? This is bad for business, and now is the time to speak out on it. Commissioner Adrian Garcia.
Thank you, Commissioner, Mayor Turner, Congresswoman Jackson Lee, County Judge Hidalgo, and County Judge KP George. Let me also just add my brief comments, and that is that SB 7 and House B 6 are bills that are in the pursuit of a problem that simply does not exist. And to make the point very clearly, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton spent 22,000 hours, according to the Houston Chronicle, and came up with 16 very, very minor violations. Attorney General Paxton, quit chasing a ghost. It's a waste of money, it's a waste of time, and all you are doing is continuing to create a problem that does not exist. In fact, I think people are hoping they can create an image that people will take hold of and be concerned about. But the reality of it is, their own efforts have proved that this problem does not exist. So look, at the end of the day, either one of 2 things is happening. Either they're lying to you about the existence of problems with election integrity, that's what I personally think, or 2, with 25 years of exclusive control, they have a terrible record of protecting our elections. One or the other. I'll let them pick. But this is what has to happen. Absolutely, the business community must once again rise to the occasion to beat back these horrible legislative efforts. We have other priorities like, fixing the power grid. But they're hoping the lights will go out so we can't see what they're doing. But at the end of the day, if we can get the business community engaged and help people understand that these bills are horrible for business, then maybe we can get them to stand down in that regard. Thank you all, but let's get engaged. Let's fight this. Let's make sure that this does not move forward. Thank you. Mayor Turner.
Let me thank Mayor Turner for leading us in this important journey. To County Judge George, County Judge Hidalgo, Commissioners Garcia and Commissioner Ellis, President of NAACP, Bishop Dixon, our County Attorney Menifee, and our former clerk, Chris Hollins, who we owe an enormous debt of gratitude, along with all others that are gathered here, Dr. Page and council members. I have the privilege of representing an international city. As I look out into this gathering, I see people whose origins started first in another country. They have come here because America still stands as a citadel of democracy. We speak many languages. We respect the dignity of all persons. And when we are defined around the world, we are defined as a place that welcomes people from everywhere, looks at ourselves not as Republicans or Democrats, independents or otherwise, but we look at ourselves as Americans. When our soldiers wear the uniform, they do not carry into battle a uniform of party affiliation, Commissioner. They carry the flag of the United States. They are proud to be an American. I am proud to be an American. I am proud because of the symbol and the practicality of what we are. You are a democracy. We can vote. We can choose the person of our choosing. And so the reason we are all standing here today, and we are delighted to see a bipartisan representation, delighted to see Bob Harvey, the president and CEO of the Greater Houston Partnership. This is important because their presence and their actions are going to be watched from around the world. And I just simply want to say, as we look at Georgia and look at the process that's being done here, some people have tried to criticize the Major League Baseball. I stand and support them and applaud them for what they have done. So as I come to a close, let me say to you why they are applauded. Because if someone is injured, we send an ambulance. Georgia was injured and an ambulance came in the name of the Major League Baseball removing the All-Star game because they needed help to understand they were wrong. And in the instance of SB 7, they are wrong. Just very briefly why they're wrong. Have you ever been an elderly person, a disabled person, a bilingual person, and had a poll watcher? I have seen them in my polling places. They have the sense of intimidation that really sends people out of the polls. And so this bill says that they will have access to the polling place. They will be able to watch over your shoulder. They will watch while someone is helping a physically or mentally challenged American who has the right to vote. That is intimidation. They will close hours to a certain extent. They will stop the drive-through voting that they had no basis of determining that it was wrong. And they will continue to take power away from the local counties. 1 million persons counties will have more supervision than any of the other areas in Texas. So if you're Harris County or Dallas or San Antonio, judges, they will look over your shoulder and they will say you are doing something wrong. I didn't see anything wrong, nor did the investigations. So I close with this. The federal government always needs to be the umbrella on a rainy day. It'll be my message to the President of the United States that we must move on H.R. 1 and H.R. 4. We must move on protecting the American people, that they never look back again with state legislatures on denying them the right to vote. We must pass the John Robert Lewis H.R. 4 bill. But yet, Mayor, I am ready to work with you, to work with our colleagues here, our commissioners and the state legislators in a harmonious and peaceful way of coming together and saying that we stand with Americans. We are not party affiliated when it comes to the right to vote. And so these words could have come from Cesar Chavez. It could have come from any leader of any cultural and ethnic group that are standing here today. Our Southeast Asian community, from India, from Pakistan, from Bangladesh, from South and Central America, from the continent. But hear the words of Dr. Martin Luther King. We are not about to turn around. We are on the move now. Yes, we are on the move. And no wave of racism can ever stop us. Thank you to the council members and mayor. No wave can ever stop us.
Thank you, Congresswoman. In this group, I know the Congresswoman called out Bob Harvey, but I do not believe that Bob Harvey, or representative of the Greater Houston Partnership, is here. I don't have the Greater Houston Partnership here, but we have the diversity of the city of Houston that's here in these chambers. We'll start with Dr. Murillo.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm President and CEO of the Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. I'm Dr. Laura Murillo. I remember years ago, we added to our name the leader of Houston's new majority. For many, let's just say, that was too much. But guess what? Here we are in 2021, and the Hispanic business community has a consumer spending over $54 billion in Houston per year. That is important because if Houston is going to continue to thrive, not just for Hispanics, but for all Houstonians, we must be a city that embraces diversity, but most of all, is cognizant of inclusion. So the Houston Hispanic Chamber of Commerce stands before you today to say that we understand this is not about Republicans or Democrats, and us versus them. It is about we, Houston, Texas, our city, and that we will make sure that everyone has the right in this beautiful, diverse, and inclusive city to vote. The business community is on this stage. They're out there. It's the small businesses that are in our city. It's the large corporations, and that's who we represent. So if you want to talk about business, we are on this stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Justin Robinson with the Urban League.
Mayor, thank you for the opportunity to come before this great body of Houstonians and pledge our support for equality, for fairness, for all the things that the Urban League stands for in its mission, for unity, for equity, to move forward and not backwards, and to stand in the way of injustice when it raises its head. This is that time. This is that opportunity to come together. This past election, more Americans voted overall than in any election in our history. That means all people participated. So when you move forward with these types of bills, you not only hurt the people that are assembled on this stage and the faces that we may have, but for all the countless others that are not represented here today. We stand for everyone, black, white, Hispanic, red, black, brown, yellow. We are all here together. Let's continue to move forward as one Houston, one community. Thank you, Mayor.
Ben Yu or Paul Gore, representing the Asian Chamber. There you go.
My name is Bing Yu. I'm a chair of Asian Chamber of Commerce. Everybody knows it's a vaccine time. It doesn't matter how many mega vaccine sites we open, there are still 10,000 Asian Americans not vaccinated yet. At this moment, still there, not vaccinated, because they don't have language skills, internet skills, or transportation access. So talking about vote, that's exactly, we want them to provide them, simplify the process. We want to provide them easy access. And as long as they're eligible, and they should be easier to get involved. And that's where we don't want to add more complicated process, adding more hurdle to them. On behalf of the Asian Chamber of Commerce, we're 100% stand by Mayor on these actions and support that. Thank you very much.
Tammy Wallace, representing LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, Mayor. Voter suppression is bad for business. Bathroom bills is bad for business. Our state legislature, our leadership in Texas, for all that the leadership has said that business is first and foremost in our state, voter suppression is not the answer. Bathroom bills are not the answer. Attacking communities that need support is not the answer. We stand up at the Greater Houston LGBT Chamber on behalf of all communities and recognize that creating opportunities to vote and not minimizing opportunities to vote is key. We stand against this legislation. Thank you, Mayor.
I think Niles Dillard, representing the Black Chamber.
Thank you, Mayor Turner. I'm Niles Dillard, the chair of the Greater Houston Black Chamber of Commerce. The Greater Houston Black Chamber represents a significant body of Black-owned businesses and consumers. We believe that the voice of every American deserves the right to be heard. And we stand with Mayor Turner and the other organizations that are here today against voter suppression. Thank you.
Then I want to hear from Chris Hollins, someone who has masterminded a lot of these things. Chris Hollins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, in 2020, we did everything that we could within the bounds of the law to ensure that we were going to have a free, a fair, a safe, and an accessible election in Harris County. And the results were nothing short of phenomenal. Nearly 1.7 million Texans, 1.7 million American citizens came out to make their voices heard and to exercise the most sacred right in our democracy. Now, the bills that are going forward right now in the Texas Legislature would make it impossible or even illegal to do the things that we did. And frankly, to do everyday things that an election administrator would do in the state of Texas. You know, we tripled the number of early voting centers to make it 3 times as likely that regardless of what party you are in, what color you are, what language you speak, what part of town you live in, that you could vote in a way that was convenient for you. This bill, these bills, would make it illegal to have large voting centers like the Toyota Center or even small voting centers like your neighborhood library. We expanded the number of voting machines in different places with high traffic to shorten lines across the county. These bills would make it illegal to do that. We made senior citizens aware of their right to vote by mail because of their increased exposure to this deadly virus. These bills would make that illegal. And so many other things, expanded hours, drive-through voting, and everyday actions taken by election administrators would be illegal or impossible because of these suppression bills, and we should not stand for it. Now, I'm so proud that members of our business community are here to stand up for the rights of everyday Texans. And we're asking more and more of the corporate entities, the businesses that keep our city and our state running to stand up for the rights of your workers, to stand up for the rights of your customers, because the expansion of free enterprise cannot happen without a free country. And we cannot have a free country without free and fair elections. And so again, I'm honored to stand alongside such a diverse array of members of our business community and elected officials and civic groups. Thank you, but we need more and more of you to step up.
Bishop Dixon over the NAACP, and will LULAC come, Mary Ramos, if you will come forward as well. And Dr. Page, if you will come forward. Bishop Dixon, head of the NAACP of Houston.
Thank you, Mayor Turner, for your leadership. Thank you, Chris Hollins, for your leadership, and to all of our elected officials and colleagues who are here. For over a century, the NAACP has been a bastion for justice. Fighting for and protecting voter rights is central to our mission nationally and locally. Recently, the Georgia Legislature passed this sweeping bill that takes us back to the era of Jim Crow. In so doing, it became the leading state in the modern voter suppression movement. Texas is on the list to potentially become a state known for Jim Crow tactics in 2021. These bills are regressive and certainly oppressive. That is why the Houston NAACP is calling on leaders to demonstrate their commitment to the values and principles of justice and democracy. We're urging members of our business, corporate, civic, social justice, and religious communities to unite against this ill-motivated agenda. If our leadership fails and Senate Bill 7 passes, Texas will make history as a modern Jim Crow state. Thus, the NAACP is supporting organizations who have issued statements against this movement. And we are proud to say Delta and Coca-Cola and others have taken the lead in the Georgia legislature. We're proud of Major League Baseball making the decision to move its All-Star game from the state of Georgia. Now, the Minute Maid Park could be a good candidate for that game if Texas does the right thing. Wouldn't it be an embarrassment that Texas could not even be on the list to be considered to host a Major League Baseball All-Star event because we voted for voter suppression? That's what's at stake. Finally, the NAACP will be convening conversations and meetings with leaders in our business, corporate, entertainment industries to ask you the question: can we count on you to stand against voter suppression? Can we count on you to stand against voter oppression? And here is our statement: if we cannot count on you to stand for us, don't count on us to buy, don't count on us to fly, and don't count on us to be quiet, because we cannot empower those who disempower Texan voters. We will be heard, we will be felt, because the power is still with the people. Thank you, Mayor.
Mary Ramos with LULAC.
Thank you so much, Mayor, for the honor to be able to speak with these wonderful leaders, and you too. Let me say this, that these bills are a travesty. It really upsets me every time I think about, I've had several calls from Austin. I also belong to an organization called HOPE, Hispanics Organized for Political Education. And we have people at the Capitol every single day trying to fight against these bills. These bills are bad for business. Bad for business, and we should do one thing. I heard that they were doing a boycott against Coca-Cola because Coca-Cola wants to move out of Georgia. Well, guess what? I will not buy anything that's not a Coca-Cola product. And I think all of us should do that and say we're going to stand against the people that voted for the voter suppression here. Make sure you get somebody to run against everybody that voted for it, and get ready to fight. If you don't fight for your right to vote, then who will? You know, we waited years and years for women to be able to vote. We can't let that ever happen again, because this is the way it starts. Vote against voter suppression, and let's all stick together on this. Remember, this is the most diverse city in the world, and we have the best mayor in the world here. So let me tell you this. Let's stand together, guys. Get rid of this bill. do whatever you have to do. Even if we have to go in busloads up to the Capitol, we can do that too. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mary. And while MJ Khan comes, let me ask for Mark Trachtenberg from the Anti-Defamation League to please come. Matt Bullard, if you will come, and if I could ask you all to kind of segue, and my lawyers, my advocates, those working in the courtrooms, the lawyers, if you will come up as well, okay? MJ Khan, Dr. Rod Page, if you will, Dr. Rod Page, if you'll make your way up. MJ Khan.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. All praise be to the Lord, the merciful, the most gracious. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Congresswoman. Thank you, county judges, county commissioners, and leaders, and the most diverse community in the entire United States, the Houston community. You know, Mayor, in a democracy, the honorable leaders and the political parties practice voters' outreach, not voter suppression. I have seen myself what voter suppression is all about. I have lived under dictatorship where voter suppression is done. And why do they do it? Because they do not have the moral high ground to reach out to the voters and convince the voters with the ideas that they should be elected. So when people are devoid of ideas, they practice voter suppression. And this should not be accepted by anybody, not anybody in Texas for sure. And Mayor, we have seen that how Georgia has passed their laws. That should not be done in Texas. So our message has to be with our leaders in Austin. Don't mess with Texas. Don't mess with Texas. Don't mess with Texas. You know, people, what I see in Austin, the same people who believed and promote fake news, now they want to practice fake democracy. And our message to them will be, don't mess with Texas. We cannot stand where our community, the Muslim community, have seen these tactics practiced by them before. They tried Muslim ban. It did not intimidate the Muslim community. They asked for Muslim neighborhood surveillance. That did not intimidate Muslim community. I can guarantee you that your tactics will not suppress the Muslim vote. Your tactics will not intimidate the Muslim community. We will come out in larger numbers and make sure that only those people who believe in true democracy, not fake democracy, get to represent all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, MJ Khan. Mark Trachtenberg with the Anti-Defamation League.
I'm Mark Trachtenberg with the law firm of Haynes & Boone. I also have the distinct honor of serving as the chair of the Anti-Defamation League's Southwest Regional Board. I am grateful for the opportunity to share my objections with this proposed legislation. I'm proud of the ADL's long record of advancing voting rights and protecting democracy, as exemplified this past fall when it participated in 2 key Texas voting rights lawsuits in partnership with the NAACP, the Brennan Center for Justice, and Common Cause. I'm also proud of the ADL's testimony to the Texas Legislature strongly opposing enactment of HB 6 and SB 7. This legislation is based on wholly unsupported claims of voter fraud. The bill's proponents have offered no evidence-based justification for imposing voting restrictions on Texas citizens, particularly ones that are most likely to disproportionately impact minority communities. We should be working on ways to make voting more accessible, not less. I strongly support the ADL's opposition to the enactment of this legislation. Thank you to Mayor Turner, and thanks to the other great leaders assembled here today in defense of basic democratic principles. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Let me call on Matt Bullard, a former NBA player and sports analyst. Matt.
I'm Matt Bullard. I'm standing here representing the NBA, NBA players, NBA retired players. And I'm standing with the WNBA and Major League Baseball. And today, Houston Astros coach Dusty Baker, who spoke out against the voter suppression bills here in Texas. Mr. Mayor, I know you're a longtime Rockets fan. I know a lot of us in here are Rockets fans, and we all remember the epic battles that we had against the Utah Jazz throughout our history. Akeem and Clyde versus John Stockton and Karl Malone. Epic battles. But in 2021, Texas is being beaten by Utah in voting rights and voter turnout. Utah runs what is commonly referred to as an all-male election. Every citizen can register to vote online. Every citizen can get their ballot in the mail. They can fill out their ballot at home in their free time, put it back in the mail, and vote very easily and safely. That's why Utah had a voter turnout of 69% in the last election. You know where we're at, Mr. Mayor? We're number 44 in the country, less than 60%. I am sick and tired of getting my ass kicked by Utah in voter suppression. Texas politicians are in Austin right now, working to make it harder for us to vote. It's all based on the big lie, false pretenses, voter integrity. I call on our leaders here in Texas stop goaltending our right to vote. And instead work to give us all access to the ballot. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Look, let me call on Norma Crosby, President of the National Federation of the Blind, Texas. And I think, come on, Norma, right here.
Good afternoon. I'm really proud to be here and to represent the National Federation of the Blind of Texas today. You know, one thing that hasn't been discussed much here this afternoon is the concept that many of us are being accused of being voter cheats. And one thing that Senate Bill 7 and House Bill 6 definitely do is to brand people with disabilities as voter cheats. And what I mean by that is that if these bills pass, people with disabilities will be forced to jump through hoops that nobody else has to jump through to be able to vote. And this is being done without offering us any more access to voting in Texas. They are going to offer, they're going to make us offer proof of our disabilities, written proof, because our word just isn't good enough. They're going to propose punishment in some cases for people who attempt to assist people with disabilities. And you know and I know that that's just not the right way, and that's not the Texas way. So I am proud to stand here in opposition to these bills. I hope the legislature in Texas will not force people with disabilities to be viewed as voter cheats here in Texas. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mary Jane Mudd from the League of Women Voters. Mary. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Turner. I'm Mary Jane Mudd, and I am representing the League of Women Voters of Houston, as well as League members all around the state of Texas, and I'm so honored to be here. Anyone who knows the League of Women Voters knows that we are founded on the principles of empowering voters and defending democracy. Over 100 years ago, women were jailed, they marched, they were beaten, they were put into mental institutions only because they wanted to vote. The 19th Amendment was ratified, and that was incredible, but as many of us know, that wasn't the case for women of color. It took years before they would have the right. We have come so far. And I've got to tell you honestly, I haven't personally had situations in my life where I have been oppressed or haven't been able to vote. So I come at this somewhat as a person who has learned in the past few years with the League. You know, last year we got to link arms with the Harris County Clerk's Office, and I was blown away by the innovative and legal ways that Chris Hollins and his team was able to make it easy for eligible people to vote. It was incredible, incredible, and yet I have a file about this thick that also catalogs when those opportunities were pushed back on, when people tried to keep it from the voter, when we were told that we couldn't have as many drop boxes, when the drive-through voting was questioned. I'm sorry, but I just can't think of any reason that would have had to be done unless you wanted to disenfranchise voters. So what I'm here to say today is, obviously, this fight isn't over, this walk isn't done, and it can only be fixed or only improved if all of us come together individually, tell people to write to their legislators. Obviously, a lot of organizations are here today because they feel so strongly, but write to corporations as well. Let them know that this is what a democracy is founded on. The right for eligible U.S. citizens to be able to vote and to make it easy for them, not harder. Thank you.
Arturo, if you'll come forward and recognize many of these lawyers. Claude Cummins, if you'll come forward as well. Arturo Moschel, city attorney and instrumental in contacting and reaching out on my behalf to a number of these lawyers who are here.
I think everyone has heard the words and the importance of the issue that we have today. Lawyers, often maligned, are often at the forefront of civil rights. I would like to thank the various lawyers and the law firms who have supported the city, who have come forth without hesitation today to be able to support this very important issue. And Mayor, I thank you for welcoming them here.
Thank you. And let me call on Larry Vasecka. Where's Larry? I said, where's Larry used to have a lot more hair.
Thank you, Your Honor. If you hear me, I represented some of the people that intervened to support Mr. Hollins and his luminary ideas with regard to drive-through voting. We participated in the hearing when some of the people wanted to claim that was illegal and wanted to prohibit even the tabulation of 127,000 plus voters from being tabulated and going through the regular process if they wanted to challenge it in a contest. They didn't want to do that. They wanted it not counted. 127,000 votes, Republicans, Independents, Democrats, Libertarians, who just wanted the convenience and the safety in a pandemic to vote, and turned out. And the judge said Mr. Hollins was probably right. He said they had no standing to bring that case, but he also said that it was legal under the state law, as he saw it, to have drive-through voting in the early voting. He said you could have drive-through voting even on election day if it wasn't in a tent. And yet they are still contesting that decision in court now because they saw there was no fraud. They can't prove there's any fraud, but they have to claim there was fraud to say why they want to change the law to make it harder to vote. We don't want it harder to vote. We want it easier to vote. We want everybody to vote. Please join that effort. Thank you.
I want to thank Larry, and I want to thank all of these law firms who are here, all standing up speaking against Senate Bill 7 and House Bill 6. I want to thank all of these lawyers and these law firms in the city of Houston. So thank you very, very much. While you're still standing, let me bring up Claude Cummings with Labor. And I also want to acknowledge Ron Lodge with the Southwest Pipe Trades as well. Claude Cummings.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Let me thank you for pulling all this together for us. And I didn't come in any prepared remarks. I just came to support. But let me just say this to all of you. My wife is from Selma, Alabama. She lived in the heart of the civil rights movement. She would watch her brothers come home bloodied from standing up just for our right to vote. And every time I go to Selma, I stand at the foot of Edmund Pettus Bridge, and I think back that when those marchers marched that day, they had no idea what the results of their marching was going to take place. So what does that tell you? That tells you that they did that for us. They did it for us. They didn't know if they would live to see the results of them marching. So what am I telling you? This is our Edmund Pettus Bridge moment right now. Not only do we have to support what we're doing as our right, having our right to vote, we've got to support our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, and their right to vote. Simple as that, just like those did during the civil rights movement. So Labor stands solidly against these two bills. And Mayor, I lead the Human Rights and Civil Rights Department for CWA. Not only are we calling the legislators in Texas, but we're calling into legislators across this country and telling them to support our right to vote. And Congressmember, our president, President Sheldon, is writing a letter to Chuck Schumer telling him that we want the filibuster pull out of the voting rights process, and let's pass the Voting Rights Act. Let's pass H.R. 1 and H.R. 4. Thank you. We stand solidly against these.
And Nelson Ryan, if you'll come forward, but I want to thank Edgar Colon, these attorneys, Michael Nichols, Deborah Baker, Barron Wallace, Jonathan Ross, Roland Garcia, Michael Harris, David Beck. I want to thank all of them, Kelly Sandhill, Alistair Dawson, for all being present. Give it up to all of these lawyers who are here as well. Now, Nelson Ryan, who came in all the way from Austin. Nelson.
Thank you, Mayor. Sure. Good afternoon. My name is Nathan Ryan, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Blue Sky Partners, a small business based in Austin, Texas. I want to thank Chris Hollins and Mayor Turner for the opportunity to be here to speak with y'all today. I'm here to add my name to the growing list of business leaders from around the state who oppose the Texas Legislature's attempts to make it less convenient for Texans to vote. We all saw what happened in Georgia, and now we're seeing the consequences they're facing for passing legislation that suppresses the vote. A tourism agency came out over the last week and said that it's going to cost that state at least $100 million in revenue, in lost revenue, just because they lost the All-Star game. Voter suppression, as has been said all day today, is bad for business. And now we're seeing the same thing happen right here in Texas. And so I say to our state lawmakers, let's not end up like Georgia. Let's strengthen our economy by strengthening our democracy. If Senate Bill 7 and House Bill 6 pass in the Texas Legislature, it will hurt our economy. That's because the growth of a nation or a state's free enterprise is directly related to the freedom of its citizens. We uphold those freedoms by preserving and expanding access to the ballot box. Voting should be convenient, as Chris Hollins and the county clerk and y'all did here in Harris County. Voting should be convenient and secure. In Texas, our elections are secure. We should be working to make our elections more convenient, not less. 2020 saw Texas's highest voter turnout in more than 30 years, with 66%, around 17 million registered Texans voting. As a native Texan and a two-time CEO, I think that's great. I think our goal should be to see turnout increase even more in the future. And I'm hoping that Governor Abbott, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, Representative Briscoe Cain, and the rest of the Texas Legislature hear that loud and clear from the business community here in our great state. Thank you again for the opportunity to be with y'all today, and go Astros.
Look, I know we have covered, we've had a number of speakers representing a number of organizations, and it's taken some time. And I understand that, but it's hard to hold a press conference of this kind on this subject to 30 minutes. And with coronavirus, it's hard to put people all on the same stage at the same time. So I want to thank those who have come. I want to thank those who have stayed. And I want to thank those who did not speak, like Lenora Pullman, who is very, very active, and so many others who have come to be in support. Michael Heckman, David Mintzberg with Houston First, the board members. I saw a number of people, number of board members who have come and did not be able to speak. The African American Police Officers League, the president and the executive director who are here. So I wanted the CEO of Houston First. There are a number of people who have come and a number of people who wanted to come. So let me thank you. But this subject, Fiel, Cesar Espinoza, Mambia Vota, who's here. So let me thank all of you for your presence. But let me tell you, let me just say this as I wrap this up and you get back to your offices, your businesses, or head home. This is a defining moment. This is a defining moment for the state of Texas. It's a defining moment. These bills will go through unless we collectively stand up and say no. They will go through. They will pass. And what I'm seeing now is that the perpetrators of these bills are speaking louder and louder and attempting to intimidate people if they stand up. You can't blame the MLB for deciding to pull out and not go to Georgia when these voter suppression bills are being enacted, and then the perpetrators try to pretend as though they are the victims. Something's wrong with that. So let me just say this. These bills are going through on our watch. This is not 1830. This is not 1930. This is 2021. It's 2021. And quite frankly, you cannot separate these bills from the attacks on Asians, Hispanics, Jews, Muslims, African Americans. You can't separate these bills out. Evil has no respect of persons. And when good people remain quiet, something's wrong. I was talking to a business leader last week about this press conference. And the business leader in this city said to me, well, Mayor, this is a partisan matter. And I stopped him. And I said, there's nothing partisan about voter suppression. When you're restricting people's right to vote, that's neither Democrat nor Republican. That's wrong. That's just wrong. And business leaders have to stand up. They got to. Okay. Faith-based leaders have to stand up. Labor leaders have to stand up. Lawyers, architects, engineers, they got to stand up. This is happening on our watch. And I'm going to close with how I started at the beginning, what Martin Luther King said. It's not our enemies we will remember, but it was our friends who chose to be silent at a moment in time in which we needed them. Okay? There was a Jewish leader said years ago, one night they came after the socialists. But because I was not a socialist, I was silent and did nothing. And one night, they came after the unionists. But because I was not a unionist, I was silent and said nothing. One night, they came after the Jews. But because I was a Jew, wasn't a Jew, I was silent and said nothing. And then one morning, they came after me. And because I had said and done nothing, I found myself all alone. And then I said to myself, what difference does it make for me to be mayor if my children and grandchildren and others are stripped of their right to vote? What's happening in the state of Texas, in the legislature, is wrong. And these bills should not pass. And if by chance these bills get through, there is a price for voter suppression. There is a price, okay? So I want to thank all of you for coming. I want to thank you all for standing. I want to thank you all for listening. I know the pool camera is here. I want to thank you all for covering it. And we'll take segments of it, and then we'll distribute them around the state of Texas. I've asked the mayors of Austin and San Antonio to join me in a press conference right about this time as well. But this is not the end. This is the beginning. Let's hang together. Let's stay together. And I think in the end we'll prevail. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate it.